The beginning of Gravitas, and the big story we're tracking is coming from Pakistan. A country of 1.3 billion people has been waiting with bated breath to welcome home one man, Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman, who shot down a Pakistani F-16 jet before landing himself in Pakistani territory and being captured by the Pakistani army there. Within 48 hours, he is being brought back into India. And that in itself is a record. No Indian personnel, security personnel who's been captured by Pakistan has come back in this record time. Abhinandan Varthaman returning to India, being returned to India unconditionally. The government of India made it very, very clear that this man will not be a bargaining chip for Pakistan. He will not be a handle to negotiate. And the Pakistani government had no choice whatsoever but to comply. They're not doing anyone a favor. That is what they want to tell the world. This is in accordance with the Geneva Convention. The international law mandates that this man be returned immediately and unharmed. So Islamabad has tried to make a virtue out of a necessity. And now they are handing over the Indian officer to Indian authorities at the Wagah Attari border. This was supposed to happen. The first report said it will happen before noon today, and it has taken many hours for this to finally materialize. It's happening as we speak. You can see in those images the convoy finally making its way to India. His parents have been waiting. Of course, his service colleagues have been waiting, as has been the entire country. The bigger story, of course, remains the war on terror and what India set out to do. But for the moment, the focus is on this man who tried to fight that war for India, and we must not lose sight of the big picture. This is what Abhinandan Varthaman went to do, to fight against those terrorists who were targeting military installations of his country. And with a MiG-21 that he was flying, he struck down a much superior plane, an F-16, before finally landing there. And that is something that we must all remember, that this is Advantage India. India's firm stand has paid off. It's been an awfully long day for this entire country. And cameras across the world, from the world over, have been trained on this particular road that you see on your screens right now. Newsrooms have been on standby, and we've been waiting for this wing commander, a soldier and a hero now, the Indian pilot who shot down this Pakistani F-16 fighter jet before landing in Pakistan. He is being returned now unconditionally. As I said, Pakistan's bargaining tactics fell flat. The government of India under Prime Minister Modi remained firm. The pilot will not be used to negotiate, and he is on his way back. On Gravitas tonight, we are recounting a story that has held an entire country together. We are waiting for some sort of confirmation to come in. My colleague Anas Malik has been keeping track of developments on the other side of the border, and he's joining us live now. Anas, it's finally happening. Let me ask you the million-dollar question. What took them so long?
Well, we're yet to be told what took them so long. What we understand that Islamabad wanted it to be delayed as much as it could be, because they did not, they were purposely trying to avoid media. It was bad PR, frankly speaking, because they've released a video statement as well that is in contrast and in graver violations of the Geneva Convention under the Article 13. But finally, what we can confirm that Wing Commander indeed has been handed over to the Indian High Commission officials. His immigration process is currently ongoing. In fact, the Indian High Commission officials have also handed over that ETD, the emergency travel document, that one-pager passport that is much needed for him in order to complete his immigration process. Yes, Palki.
Would it be fair to say that the Pakistani government tried to make it, turn this into a media spectacle, and they stretched it as much as they could, and finally this man has been handed over to the Indian authorities?
Well, certainly, the Pakistani side went on with that delay tactic, and they wanted to create a media circus, though they did try to show their impartiality at max, because remember, the media has been stopped at about a 2-kilometer gap, with the Pakistan television, the state broadcaster, being allowed inside that immigration room and around the Wagah border, that main crossover vicinity. This is something very unusual, because the last time we saw such a handover was in August 2017, when Chandu Babulal Chauhan, the Indian soldier who had inadvertently crossed into the Pakistan side on the night when the surgical strikes were being conducted, as India claims, on the Pakistan side on the 29th of September 2016. 8 months later, when he was handed over, the private media was allowed right up to the gate. But not this time. This time, the Pakistani side, the Pakistani establishment have decided that they would bar the private media and they would keep them at a distance for about 2 kilometers from where I am right now. And in fact, those who are only allowed inside is the state broadcaster. Again, the delay tactic did give them an edge, or perhaps some life, so that they wanted to cash on it as much as they could. They got that glamour, they got that glare, and finally, after much delay, first wing commander was to be handed over at 1 p.m. Then it went on to 3 p.m. Then it became 4 p.m. Then it became 6 p.m. Then 7, and finally, after much delays, more than 5 or 6 delays, he's now been brought at the Wagah border at about 8:15 Pakistan time, and in moments from now he'll be crossing over that Wagah Attari border from the Pakistan side to the Indian side. He'll be accompanied by the Indian air attaché at the Indian High Commission in Islamabad, Group Captain J.T. Kurian as well, who will be traveling with him from Pakistan all the way to his journey in India. Yes, Palki.
Right. With me are two guests who understand the affairs of Pakistan better than most others. Dilip Sinha, former High Commissioner of India to Pakistan, also Vivek Karju, a very senior diplomat. Good evening to both of you. Mr. Karju, to you first. We've been waiting, as has been the entire country. It's taken awfully long. Is this how things work, or was Pakistan waiting for some last-minute concession that they did or did not get?
No, I doubt that it was waiting for some concessions, because it couldn't have hoped for any. And I must say I'm completely confused, because it makes no sense. Yesterday in Parliament, Imran Khan said that he was making a grand peace gesture. We know that he was doing nothing of the kind. He was in a fix, and that he wanted to diffuse the situation by making this gesture of releasing the quick release of Wing Commander. Now, the question is, why have they been holding him? What is the technical difficulty? I can't imagine any. So unless one gets to know what exactly was transpiring, it will be all speculation. Naturally, as far as I would imagine that as far as the paperwork from the Indian side was concerned, it must have been all ready, because our High Commission in Islamabad would have had all the information they required under the rules and under immigration procedures. An emergency certificate was mentioned. That is absolutely right. In the absence of a passport, a national is given an emergency certificate to go back to his country. So we really have to, we'll have to wait for the official briefing to know what took so long. And finally, if the Pakistanis thought that they'll get some publicity points, I think they were mistaken, because stretching this out to this extent would has soured things, and I doubt whether they will get any good marks for this kind of behavior.
Dilip Sinha, what are your thoughts? What do you think took so long, and is it standard practice? Though we've not had very many cases like this one, but I'm assuming that the Indian side went in prepared. After all, this is the one thing that the MEA had been focusing on.
Well, I don't think the delay would have taken place because of any delay on the part of the Indian High Commission there. But perhaps, as your correspondent from Pakistan was saying, this could be because of the medical tests and examinations, because Pakistan would have liked to ensure that there is no issue coming up thereafter of he showing signs of any injury or anything, any development in terms of medical condition arising after his return to India. So this could have been a factor, but in any case, there has been some delay, and we have to wait and see once these officials come to India to understand what has caused this delay. There's no point in speculating at this moment on that.
Indeed. That's all we can do. Wait patiently. I'm going to request you both to also bear with us as we recount the story. The entire country, as we said, waiting for the return of Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman. He was captured by Pakistan 2 days ago when Pakistani jets tried to violate the Indian airspace. For pretty much the whole day today, Indian citizens and the media have been waiting at the Attari-Wagah border for this man to return. On Wednesday, tensions had escalated between India and Pakistan. Pakistani jets had tried to breach Indian territory. They were targeting India's military installations. This was in retaliation to the airstrikes by the Indian Air Force. On Tuesday, India had demolished Jaish-e-Mohammed terror camps in Pakistan. That's a story we've been telling you all week. A day later, there was a dogfight between Indian and Pakistani jets. India lost one of its MiG-21s in action. Its pilot was Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman. He was captured by the Pakistani army. On Thursday, India took a firm position. It insisted on a quote-unquote unconditional and immediate return of Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman. Left with no choice and no handle to bargain, Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan announced in his National Assembly that they will return the pilot. Listen into this.
हिंदुस्तान का पायलट हमने पकड़ा हुआ है. हम एज ए पीस जेस्चर हम उनको उसको कल रिहा करने लगे हैं हिंदुस्तान को वापस.
And these are live pictures that we're getting you. You see the man there on your screens. Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman, surrounded by military officials, standing firm in the face of all the pressure that he's gone through over the past 3 days that he was captured by the Pakistani forces. It's the moment that the entire country has been waiting for, and a very emotional one too for many. The formality is finally being completed as he is being handed over to the Indian side. Forever a soldier, they are marching along with the others there as he's coming back, being escorted by the Pakistanis and the Indians. He was flying in a MiG-21 jet when he shot down an F-16. The Pakistani F-16s were trying to target India's military installations. The F-16, we must understand, is a superior aircraft, and for him to have shot it down was a feat in itself. His plane was shot at and he ejected and fell into Pakistani territory. That's how he was caught by the Pakistani army. This is Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman returning to his home country, to India, at the Wagah Attari border. Just a few minutes back, he was handed over to officials of the Indian High Commission. Remember, India refused to bargain with Pakistan, and this is under the Geneva Convention that he was returned in a record 48 hours. Mr. Karju, incredible images there. I wonder if you can see this, but for a man to have gone through so much pressure and so much, he's standing upright, he's standing in attention position, and he's waiting patiently for the formalities to be over. This is something that shows what a soldier is made of, sir.
No, I'm sorry, I can't see that image. Is he surrounded by Pakistani officers or Indian officers?
He's surrounded by officers, sir. I cannot confirm who, but he's standing there firm with a lady and an Indian official with him.
And is this a feed from Pakistan?
This is the feed from Pakistan, yes.
Then I imagine that if they are officers, then they must be Pakistani officers, because our officers must be on our side of the border, and he would be accompanied there by Indian officers,
right, sir,
from High Commission and the Defence Attaché.
I think I can see the Defence Attaché. Mr. Sinha, these are very powerful images. They're all standing in attention position, and yet the focus of an entire country and indeed the whole world which is following the India-Pakistan crisis is on this moment. This is what they have been waiting for these gates to open, for him to cross over. This is the air defense attaché with him and those officers, as Mr. Karju said, presumably from the Pakistani side. He was supposed to be back by noon today. These are basic formalities that are being concluded, I believe. They're checking the papers. He underwent a medical checkup which took longer than expected. There were all sorts of reports that came in earlier today on when he would come. There was no clarity on when the Pakistanis would hand him over, by which route. But the attention was focused on the Wagah-Attari border, and that is the route that he's taking. Remember, Pakistan has been under immense international pressure. The Americans have intervened on India's behalf. The Chinese have spoken very strongly about state sponsorship of terrorism. The European Union called out Pakistan. And most importantly, I say, the government of India stood its ground. We've seen such situations in the past, and in some we have succumbed. The government has succumbed, but this time the government was very firm in its position that Pakistan would not be doing India a favor by releasing this man. It was duty bound to do so. And so Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, announced in the National Assembly yesterday that Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman would be released and returned to India today. The gates finally being opened there. It's a tense moment. In fact, the Prime Minister in a rally in Tamil Nadu today spoke about him, hailed this pilot. He comes from the state of Tamil Nadu. And the government has been tight-lipped about what transpired. That there you see the Pakistani flag. This is the feed that we're getting from the media on the other side of the border. He's a 34-year-old pilot who comes from a family of Air Force men, and his parents were also filmed today. They were making their way to Delhi from Chennai to receive their son. Earlier in the evening, we saw images of scores of people gathered at the Wagah-Attari border, singing songs, dancing to music, waiting for the return of Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman. The situation between India and Pakistan is still tense. The ceasefire violations continue. Yesterday, the army representative at the press conference outside South Block had said that there had been 35 ceasefire violations in 2 days from the Pakistani side. And today, India has lost five Jawans, 5 personnel of the CRPF and 1 policeman from Kashmir. So the fighting has not abated. But this is something that Pakistan had to do. This is something that Pakistan tried to pull off. They tried to pull off warnings wrapped as peace offers. No one bought that line. And now the Pakistani government has had no recourse but to return this man. The question then is, what happens next? Does the war on terror, does India's war on terror continue, or will this be a one-off? Remember, the government of India, the Indian Air Force, in fact, struck what it called non-military installations in Pakistani territory, Jaish-e-Mohammed terror camps, and according to reports, eliminated 200 to 300 terrorists of Masood Azhar's terror outfit. Today, the Pakistani Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, in an interview to international media, said that Masood Azhar is indeed in Pakistan. And I'm in a newsroom full of people who are cheering and clapping. He has finally crossed that line, walked across, entered the Indian side and is shaking hands with his comrades there. And this is the big breaking news right now that we can give you. As you see on your screens, Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman is finally home. He has entered the Indian territory and is being escorted by Indian officers there. The gates being shut at the Wagah-Attari border. And what a moment this has been. (9:21 p.m. Abhinandan Varthaman, Wing Commander of the Indian Air Force, the man who shot down an F-16 and warded off a Pakistani attempt to attack India's military installations, has been returned, hopefully unharmed, to the Indian side. It's a big moment, Dilip Sinha, but there is procedure and there is protocol. So what happens next is he's going to be debriefed.
Yes. He'll be debriefed by our officials, Air Force officials, and presumably tomorrow sometime, or maybe later tonight, there'll be a media briefing also where they will inform the country of what happened, the reason for the delay, for example, and any other information that they would like to share of the experience of Wing Commander Abhinandan with the Indian people, because there were a lot of social media images that were floating around. Some had to be removed from the YouTube. So it is important that the Indian public, which has taken so much interest in this whole episode, be informed, in general terms at least, of what happened while he was in captivity in Pakistan.
Right. I want to tell our viewers that these are images from just a few minutes back when he was still on the Pakistani territory. We're waiting for images from the Indian side to come in. I assume that the forces will try to keep him away from the media glare. He's been through too much already, and it would be unfair to expose him to more cameras. So he's going to be taken to a safe location to be debriefed, to undergo a medical checkup, I'm presuming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then to meet his family. A brave young soldier of the country, he's returned. And these are images that we showed you just a few minutes back from the Pakistani side. Mr. Karju, I want to ask you this. How big an achievement do you think this is, that within 48 hours of him being captured, this is a first in Indian history, I believe. I'm looking at previous cases. Captain Saurabh Kalia, squadron leader Ajay Ahuja, K. Nachiketa, K.C. Karyappa, Lieutenant Dilip Parulkar, all these cases, it has never happened that within 48 hours, Pakistan has voluntarily declared that we are going to release this Indian soldier and actually done so.
Well, each release has its own context.
Indeed.
Therefore, it is difficult to compare them. In this case, I believe, and we are very happy, all of us are happy and delighted that now as we speak, Wing Commander Abhinandan is back with us. Our son is back with us. What can give us greater joy? But in this particular case, I believe that the Pakistan Army and the civilian leadership of Pakistan, in order to diffuse the situation, I think they found that this was the best way of doing it, by handing over the Wing Commander back to us very, very quickly, so that they could indicate to us that they did not want to escalate the situation any further, that they wanted a de-escalation, and that was, of course, because we ourselves had stood firm. So they found this way. Now, the international community too, I think, would have been telling them that one way of showing goodwill to India and help to diffuse this is by sending Wing Commander Abhinandan back as soon as possible and unharmed. Now, one other point that I wish to make is this, that it is unusual that they've given it such wide publicity, that they are focusing cameras on him all through. And I suspect that is in order to show that he's being returned unharmed, that he was there, he's standing erect, he appears to be perfectly all right. And as far as the medical examination in Pakistan is concerned, it shouldn't take so long. The medical examination doesn't stretch for hours. So therefore, I for one will be waiting for the reason that the government shares with us such information as it can share with us about why this delay and what have the Pakistanis told them for this, the reasons for this delay.
Right, sir. The question also is what happens next? The government of India has not budged, not even an inch. The Prime Minister has not, interestingly, over the past 4 days, made any direct reference to what happened on Tuesday, to the non-military strikes that the Indian Air Force conducted in Pakistani territory on Jaish-e-Mohammed camps. He has not referred to the capture of this wing commander until he lauded his work today in Chennai, in Kanyakumari, in Tamil Nadu. So the messaging is very, very cryptic from the government of India. And the Prime Minister, interestingly, also said that what you've seen so far is just the pilot project. The real action is yet to come. And before I carry on with that question, I want to bring our viewers their attention to the images on our screens right now. These are images from the Indian side, the convoy at the Wagah Attari border. I assume he's going to be taken to Amritsar. From there, he'll be flown to New Delhi. And a huge media contingent also present there. Cameras have been trained on this road all day today. The first report said that he'd be home before noon, but it's taken awfully long, many hours before this has finally happened, this moment has finally come. We understand that the Indian side is not very keen on making it a media circus, and rightly so in a situation like this. The convoy there making its way to Amritsar. Very high security and a lot of people present there cheering this man. The beating retreat ceremony on the Indian side was cancelled today. They wanted to keep the road clear. They wanted to keep the engagements minimum for the return to happen any minute. And it's finally happened at 9:21 p.m. This Friday, the 1st of March, will be etched in Indian history as the day Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman was brought back. And the Air Force representative there is going to make a statement. Let's try and listen into what he has to say. The Air Force about to make a statement there, and messages of congratulations, of welcome are already pouring in on social media.
We will not take any questions after this. Wing Commander Abhinandan has just been handed over to us as per standard operating procedure of the Indian Air Force. He will now be taken for a detailed medical checkup. This checkup is mandated particularly because the officer has had to eject from an aeroplane which would have put his entire body under great stress. IF is happy to have Abhinandan back. Thank you.
What was the delay about? What was the delay about?
Well, he said precious little there, nothing that we did not know. He says according to standard operating procedure, Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman will undergo a detailed medical checkup.
Authorities brought Wing Commander Abhinandan to the checkpost of the Attari, and it is just now that he has crossed over the zero line.
So he was here when? At the checkpost in Attari?
No, not very long back. He reached this place not very long back, and he was here for about half an hour. Thereafter he was handed over to the BSF authorities, and the Air Force authorities have taken him.
Well, understandably, very little information coming out. The Air Force representative there saying that as per standard operating procedure, a detailed medical checkup will be done because this is mandated because he had to eject, and this would have brought his body under tremendous strain. These are pictures from just a few minutes back. He's now part of the convoy that's making its way to the Amritsar, and he will be flown to Delhi. So we didn't expect them to say very much, but we can join in the congratulations and we can join in the welcome messages, Mr. Sinha. He's finally come back, and from the looks of it, he's come back safe.
Yes, I mean, he looks okay. As I said, he could walk up straight. There were some reports that his back had been injured, but he's obviously in reasonably good health. And I think we should be grateful that, at least from the human angle, international politics, national politics, bilateral politics apart, he's safe. He's come back. He's come back very quickly. The past history of treatment of prisoners has not been very happy, and in this particular case, the fact that it has come to this happy denouement means that we should really be grateful for this, and perhaps at least be pleased that this particular episode has concluded satisfactorily. Pakistan can claim whatever publicity it has, it's trying to draw from this. Obviously, it has made a great media spectacle of it, having the TV cameraman positioned so prominently over there, delayed his movement until all the camera was focused on him all through. So let them draw whatever publicity they have drawn. We should draw satisfaction from the fact that he is back, an officer, senior officer by Air Force, is back here safe, back to the service, back to his family. And we should appreciate this fact.
Ambassador Karju, to those who say that this is advantage Pakistan, what is your response, sir?
I don't see how this is advantage Pakistan. I mean, these are all very childish things, this kind of publicity, drawing attention. It doesn't really, in the long run, it doesn't help. As far as the entire set of, or the sequence of events starting from Pulwama, that of course would require a deep analysis. But prima facie, it seems that Mr. Modi has consolidated the surgical strikes and taken that process further. He has demonstrated that if there is an unacceptable attack, India reserves the right and will exercise the right, if it wishes, to attack terrorist facilities on Pakistani territory. And I believe that by doing so and by refraining from any action against any Pakistani state facility, he has put the onus now on Pakistan to ensure that terrorism is curbed. Not that I expect that Pakistan will change course easily. That, as we've discussed separately, would require enormous effort on our part, would require a change in our strategic thinking, and only then, over a long period, will we be able to make a dent in Pakistani thinking and action in this regard. But I think the international community will now lean on Pakistan a little more, because from a defensive posture, we've now taken a forward posture, and whenever a country takes a forward posture, I do believe that it's and in a justified way, because the international community, many in the international community were asking, when will India's strategic patience run out? How long would India be on the defensive? How long would India absorb Pakistani terror strikes? And now that strategic patience has ended through this Balakot strike, I think the leading powers of the world will tell Pakistan that they can't play these games anymore. That is much too dangerous. Will this impact on Pakistan? Well, Pakistan is adept at maneuvering, and I think they'll try their level best. So therefore, we'll have to stay the course. But the point has been made by us, and made in a somewhat dramatic fashion through the Balakot attack.
Absolutely. What happens next is a very important question. We'll try to discuss that in a bit. For the moment, let's once again play out for our viewers that statement from the Air Force representative on where Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman is being taken next.
Wing Commander Abhinandan has just been handed over to us as per standard operating procedure of the Indian Air Force. He will now be taken for a detailed medical checkup. This checkup is mandated particularly because the officer has had to eject from an aeroplane which would have put his entire body under great stress. IF is happy to have Abhinandan back.
Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman is back home, and that is welcome news. But it's not the end of the story. The objective of India's airstrikes still remain unresolved. How did it begin? Because Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorists attacked a CRPF convoy in Pulwama. The terror outfit claimed responsibility. Masood Azhar, head of the Jaish, is in Pakistan, and that's what India targeted. The organization is technically banned, but not only does it exist, it thrives. It even runs training camps. India wants Masood Azhar in the United Nations list of terrorists. The man is the mastermind of many terror attacks, including the 26/11 Mumbai strike. And now, for the first time, the government of Pakistan has admitted that Masood Azhar is very much living in Pakistan. None other than the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Shah Mahmood Qureshi, told an international TV station that Masood Azhar is unwell, so much so that he cannot leave his house. As I tell you this story, we'll once again play out for you those images of Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman, who's just made his way back to India and has gone as part of a convoy for a medical checkup. Mr. Shah Mahmood Qureshi, the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, said that his country will take action against Masood Azhar if presented with evidence that can stand in a court of law. It doesn't end there. Qureshi said that if India shared solid, undeniable evidence that is acceptable to the courts of Pakistan, then their government will convince the people and the judiciary. He stressed on the need to satisfy the legal process of Pakistan. It sounds a bit ludicrous given their record. Let's remind Mr. Qureshi of some facts here. One, India has been sharing evidence, a lot of evidence, especially of the Jaish-e-Mohammed's links with terror attacks, including 26/11. The proof has been shared not just with Pakistan, but also with the international community. And two, after the Pulwama attack, India gave a dossier to Pakistan. This dossier contains specific details on the role of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, its chief, and the presence of Jaish terror camps. What more evidence does Pakistan want? And that's debunking only half of Mr. Qureshi's tune. Here is the second part. Courts in Pakistan are severely compromised. Their rulings are often political and partisan. The best example is the recent action that was taken against former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. The army wanted him out of the electoral race, so they put him in jail. If they can do this to their own Prime Minister, what chance does India stand? To expect India to satisfy the specific needs of Pakistan's courts to take action on a terrorist is simply taking it too far, and India is saying it in so many words. Speaking at the Science Awards function last night, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that a pilot project just got over. Pilot project. The real project was yet to happen. This is not a thinly veiled reference to the IF's airstrikes. If piercing Pakistan's airspace to target terror camps is the pilot project, then the Prime Minister's statement is simply an announcement that India will not tolerate terror.
आप तो लेबोरेटरी में जिंदगी गुजारने वाले लोग हैं और आप में एक पहले पायलट प्रोजेक्ट करने की परंपरा होती है और पायलट प्रोजेक्ट होने के बाद स्केलेबल किया जाता है तो अभी एक पायलट प्रोजेक्ट हो गया.
This comes in the middle of a unique situation. Pakistan has been trying to parrot its peace credentials to the world with the release of this Indian Air Force pilot. The fact is that it's obliged to do so. The country is not really cleaning up the terror camps. If they wanted de-escalation, if Pakistan wanted de-escalation, if Pakistan wanted to make a sincere peace offer, they would have sent Masood Azhar. With the airstrikes on Tuesday, India has shown rare political will to dismantle cross-border terror. The question is, what happens next? What happens from here? Will New Delhi attempt to use diplomatic channels once again to put pressure on Pakistan to act on terrorism, or will India act itself? Did the Prime Minister just signal what's coming when he said that this was a pilot project? With Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman back, will Pulwama and Masood Azhar be forgotten? Has the collective worry and then the collective euphoria of an entire nation over one soldier made us lose sight of the larger problem? The war on terror must not end just yet. And there's another reason we can tell you why Pakistan is concerned. It is over the use of the F-16 fighter jets during the operation against India. Last night, officials from the Indian Air Force debunked the claim made by the Pakistani army. They said that there is enough evidence to prove that F-16s were part of the operation.
There is enough evidence to show that F-16s were used in this mission through the electronic signatures, and thereafter the Pakistan is trying to hide this fact. Also, parts of AMRAAM air-to-air missile, which is carried only on the Pakistan F-16s, was recovered east of Rajouri within the Indian territory. Therefore, the fact remains that one F-16 of PAF was shot down by IF MiG-21 Bison.
During this press conference, India showed parts of American-made AMRAAM missile that were dropped by the Pakistani jet on Indian soil. If they caused any damage, it was only to Pakistan. Because Pakistan now stands exposed. Experts say the AMRAAM missile can only be fired from an F-16 jet. So why does Pakistan want to hide the fact that F-16s were deployed? There's good reason for that. Pakistan is now in violation of contractual obligations. It has violated the contract it signed with the Americans. This was when Pakistan bought the F-16 jets. According to the agreement, Islamabad can only use the F-16 to quote-unquote enhance Pakistan's ability to conduct counter-insurgency and counter-terrorism operations. Wednesday's strike was anything but. Far from counter-terrorism, it was to target India's military installations. It's a grave violation, and Pakistan will face the music. It has been buying F-16s from America since the early 1980s. It was during the Reagan administration that America sold 40 F-16 jets to Pakistan. Military dictator Zia-ul Haq was in charge in that country. Back then, Islamabad wanted to buy as many as 70 F-16 jets, but they were given only 40. The sale of the rest of the 30 was blocked to punish Pakistan over the development of nuclear weapons. In 2006, Pakistan was a major recipient of American arms, though. It received 36 new F-16 jets alongside new missiles and bombs. And now America knows how those weapons are being misused. The big story, at the risk of sounding repetitive, is the return of Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman. Just a few minutes back, 9:21 p.m. to be precise, he crossed over to the Indian side from the Wagah, at the Wagah-Attari border. The Pakistani side finally handed him over, and these are images of him crossing the border, literally. He was supposed to return before noon today, but the medical examination apparently took inordinately long. We do not know the full story of what happened and what caused the delay. And that is something that we'll have to wait for. Very little by way of information coming from the Indian side. But this is what has happened. He's finally come back home, and come back home within 48 hours Over the years, India has fought many battles against its enemies, starting from the 1947, when India fought 4 wars against Pakistan over these past 70 years. India emerged victorious in all of them, but these wars come at a cost. And sometimes the cost includes our soldiers. Soldiers who were captured by the Pakistani forces, some who were lucky enough to have made it back alive, many who did not. Tonight we want to tell you about military officials who've been held as prisoners of war by Pakistan and what happened.
Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman's capture by Pakistani forces and the much-awaited safe release by Pakistani government certainly brings back memories of other military officials who have been held as prisoners of war by Pakistan. In 1965, K.C. Cariappa was a young flight squadron leader. While flying near the border, his plane was shot down and was captured by the Pakistani military. The son of Field Marshal K.M. Cariappa, first Indian Chief of Armed Forces of Independent India, K.C. Cariappa spent 5 months in the POW camps before being repatriated to India. Flight Lieutenant Dilip Parulkar's plane was shot down during the Indo-Pak War of 1971 and was subsequently taken prisoner. Parulkar, along with 2 other IAF officials, made a daring attempt to escape the Pakistani prison. Though they were successful in their attempts, they were eventually captured again. Parulkar and others were finally released in December 1972. Group Captain Kambampati Nachiketa was captured by Pakistani troops in May 1999 during the Kargil War. He had to eject from his MiG-27 after facing a technical snag. He was in Pakistan's custody for 8 days, where he underwent through severe mental and physical torture. Nachiketa was the lone POW of the Kargil War to have made it back alive to the Indian soil, after mounting pressure from United Nations and international media forced Pakistan to release him. Squadron leader Ajay Ahuja was also captured by Pakistani forces at roughly the same time as Group Captain Nachiketa. After his plane was shot down, Ahuja was taken as a prisoner of war. Seen as a highly questionable and highly criticized action by Pakistani forces, squadron leader Ahuja was shot dead. Post-mortem reports had cited 2 bullet wounds, one in the head and one in the chest from close range. 6 officers, including Captain Saurabh Kalia, were captured on 14th May 1999 by the Pakistani forces. And what can only be termed as a gross violation of the Geneva Convention, Captain Kalia and 5 other soldiers' mutilated remains were handed over to India on 6 June 1999. While India accused Pakistan of breaching the Geneva Convention, Pakistan still maintains that Captain Kalia and his men were never captured by Pakistani forces. They died due to extreme weather conditions and that their bodies were found in a pit. While these have been tales of those who did make it back to the Indian soil, whether on their feet or wrapped in the tricolour, 54 soldiers of Indian Armed Forces who went MIA in the 1971 Indo-Pak War are still believed to be languishing in various Pakistani prisons. The 54 POWs have come to be known as the Missing 54. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
India secured another big win today, and we must not forget to mention that. It was a diplomatic win. After a wait for 50 years, India finally attended a meeting as the guest of honor, no less, of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj attended, along with foreign ministers from Muslim countries. India was invited by the government of the UAE, which is hosting this meeting. Understandably, this invite has given a major heartburn to Pakistan. Their foreign minister, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, did not attend the meeting. An empty chair, as you can see there, designated to the Pakistani foreign minister, was visible while Sushma Swaraj made her statement today. It was a powerful statement, I must tell you. She quoted from the Quran. None of the 99 names of Allah mean violence, she said. She also quoted from the Rig Veda. Without naming Pakistan, the Indian minister hit out at states that sponsor terror.
And we are witnessing the terrible daily destruction in senseless terrorist violence. It is destroying lives, destabilizing regions, and putting the world at great peril. The reach of terror is growing. Its lethality is increasing, and the toll it is taking is rising. In the rich diversity of Southeast Asia, in West Asia and the Gulf, in North Africa and Sahel region, in Europe and North America, in Afghanistan, Bangladesh and India, we see the terrible face of terror. If we want to save the humanity, then we must tell the states who provide shelter and funding to the terrorists to dismantle the infrastructure of their terrorist camps and stop providing funding and shelter to the terror organizations based in that country.
Pakistan's foreign minister chose to protest the invitation to India in his country's parliament. As a member of the OIC, Pakistan did try to get India disinvited from the meeting in Abu Dhabi, but the UAE snubbed Islamabad, and that's very significant. As the host country, the UAE was entitled to invite India. It doesn't need the approval of other members, and that's exactly what it did. This is a huge setback to Pakistan. It has always used the OIC to push its agenda on Kashmir. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation is the second largest intergovernmental organization in the world after the United Nations. A total of 57 countries are its members. India, where more than 10% of the world's Muslims live, the second highest Muslim population in the world, has been left out of the international organization, mainly due to Islamabad's insistence. This invitation is a sign that India's ties with the West Asian countries have improved now. India's ties with the UAE in particular have grown stronger. Indians make up 1/3 of the UAE's population. Recently, Abu Dhabi also helped India in its fight against corruption. Their government had deported Christian Michel to India, the main accused in the Augusta Westland case on New Delhi's request. So why is India's attendance such a big deal? To understand that, we must know India's history with the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. They share a rocky past. It was nearly 5 decades ago that the OIC extended an invitation to India. It was their first meeting. The then Indian government was invited to attend it in Rabat in 1969. But the Indian delegation, led by former President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad, was asked to return from Rome. That's because Pakistan had thrown a spanner in the works. Their president, Yahya Khan, had threatened to walk out of the inaugural meeting if India was allowed to attend. Ultimately, Islamabad had its way. That was 50 years ago. Since then, Pakistan has used the OIC to abuse India. More specifically on the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, the OIC has consistently backed Islamabad, often releasing statements critical of New Delhi. Recently, the OIC condemned India's preemptive strikes in Pakistan's Balakot. But in the same breath, it also called on both sides to de-escalate. Here's what the statement said, and I'm quoting, "We called upon both parties to act responsibly and encourage them to seek peaceful solution to current crisis without resorting to the use of force. We also called on them to embrace dialogue and work towards de-escalation of the current situation as a matter of priority." They've come a long way, the OIC. More than 180 million Muslims live in India. Despite that, India has had absolutely no representation at the OIC thus far. The international organization has 57 member states. Russia, Thailand and some other nations hold the observer status. In 2018, that's last year, Bangladesh had made a suggestion that India should be given the observer status. Guess who opposed the idea? Pakistan. Which is why an invitation to the OIC Foreign Ministers meeting in Abu Dhabi is a major diplomatic win for India. This is an indication of India's improving ties with Saudi Arabia and the UAE. They have been traditionally inclined towards Pakistan, and that is why this makes it very, very significant. So what led to this change of heart now? It is the changing relationship between India and the Muslim world that has led to this thaw. Prime Minister Modi has redefined India's engagement with the UAE and Saudi Arabia. These two countries have been Pakistan's closest international partners. Better ties have now opened a window for India to expand this relationship with the Muslim world. But what is in it for the OIC nations? Why are they doing it? They are looking to gain access to the Indian market, which is one of the largest in the world. Countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia are keen to tap into India's job market, a massive young population, to fulfill their human resource needs. They want India's friendship. India has caught the imagination of the global community as the future growth center. In the past, India has rubbished the significance of the OIC, but equations have changed and interests have changed, which is why these changes are taking place. Had Pakistan mended its ways, things could have been different. Today, 18 years after the Jaish-e-Mohammed was listed, Pakistan's failure to crack down on terrorists has meant that India is at the OIC meeting and Pakistan is boycotting it. For Delhi, this invite is an important beginning. It makes Pakistan's global isolation total. It also gives India an opportunity to further its geopolitical and business interests. All in all, a win-win for Delhi. And what a day it's been. Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman is back home. And